Hello, and welcome to the Vegan Gym Live. And we are the live stream and podcast where science meets plant power. I'm your host, Dr. Daphne Bascom, and we are excited that you're here with us today. Whether you are a returning listener or joining us for the first time, we are thrilled to have you here. So, just to remind you that our mission is to empower you with cutting edge information that will optimize your health and fitness and help you live your best life as a healthy, fit vegan. And we hope you share this with friends, family, and other people who we know you can spread the mission to. Every episode, we dive into science backed training techniques, the latest in plant based nutrition, and we want to ensure that you're getting the most out of your vegan lifestyle. So, thanks for joining us. And today, we're going to have a great conversation with one of my favorite coaches around comfort eating and night eating. So, joining me today is Coach Emma. Emma, welcome to the Vegan Gym Live.
Awesome. I'm so glad to be here, and thank you for inviting me to have a chat about one of the most, you know, or topics that I'm most passionate about when it comes to the health and fitness space, which is the relationship with food and making sure that we have a sustainable approach when it comes to approaching our nutrition in the fitness space. So I appreciate being here.
Emma, you have such an amazing story. Would you mind sharing with our audience a little bit about your journey, who you are, where you came from, why this is a topic so important to you, and how you got to the vegan gym?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for asking, and would love to hear, would love to share a little bit more about my background and why I'm here and why I coach and the approach and coaching philosophy that I have. So, yeah, I'm Coach Emma. I'm 29 years old and I actually live in Melbourne, Australia. But over here, I have a bubbly accent. It's not Australian accent, so I'm actually originally from Finland. I was born and raised there. I've lived all around the world. Traveling used to be my lifestyle. And I feel like I've lived multiple different lifetimes. I've been a rescue diver, I've been a DJ, I've been a dancer, and after a life experiences, I ended up being a fitness coach. So
Mhm.
um, I have been with VSA since 2020, so it's been a little over 3 years. So I'm one of the VSA grandma coaches when it comes to being in the team for quite a long time. And how I started my vegan fitness journey, I became vegan in November 2015. So that's soon, what is it, 8 years?
Eight,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's seven
Oh,
and a
no?
half now. Yeah. And I got interested about the kind of vegan lifestyle by following some YouTube channels, watching documentaries, and there was one specific moment after watching the Earthlings document where I I was eating cheese like out of the packet, and I just had the reflective moment where I'm like, this is not worth it. And I remember throwing the rest of the cheese away, and I became vegan overnight. So it wasn't like a slow, gradual process, but it was kind of just all the pieces falling into place when it comes to um, the ethics and health benefits and environmental impact. Um, when it comes to my background in fitness, I've always been an athlete. So I was a competitive dancer. When I was a kid, I used to do snowboarding, volleyball, horseback riding, track and field. So I've always been an athlete. I quit dancing in my early 20s and I found bodybuilding quite quickly after that because there was a space in my life or a void that I felt like needed to be filled when it comes to athletic endeavors. And I had a week free gym membership, and I was like, oh, I love this lifestyle because it was similar, like rigidity. Is that the right word?
Uh-huh.
than dancing, and I really just loved the how I could push myself mentally. Um, Through that, I went through a whole journey of doing different sports from powerlifting to CrossFit fit to bodybuilding, and I did bikini competitions. And through all those experiences, I came a full circle because around my teenage years, when I was a dancer, I started to develop an unhealthy relationship with food. And I struggled with an eating disorder for 10 years. That unfortunately almost took my life. So I had to get to the point where I needed to choose if I was going to let the kind of disorder take over. So how I healed from the eating disorder was really learning the relationship that I have with myself, learning how to regulate my emotions properly, how to feel secure within myself without needing external validation, focusing on learning about female hormones, eating enough, and managing my training volume and recovery. So yeah, I didn't have a working menstrual cycle for 10 years because of chronic dieting and overtraining. So that just gave me a lot of, I learned through the hard times I went through to know what's actually truly important, what is true health, not just looking fit, but actually being fit mentally, physically, and spiritually. So through that, I kind of learned my coaching philosophy. I also have a degree in neuroscience and human physiology. I kind of combined that with the background I have with fitness and my own challenges and hardships, and that shaped who I am now as a coach. So I've been personal trainer, group fitness instructor, online coach, but now I do kind of VSAs, my passion, and coaching and teaching online with VSA since 2020. And that's kind of my background journey. So anything you wanted to ask or any details before we dive into your questions?
Emma, you're too young to have been through all of that.
I know some people like you, it seems like you've lived so many lifetimes. And
You have.
I wouldn't take anything back though. Everything, all the challenges I went through really taught me or made me the person I am today. So of course I didn't want that to happen to anyone else, but I'm appreciative and grateful for all the experiences I've had in my life, no matter if they were highlights or lowest moments.
And we need both of them to make us who we are. So can you talk a little bit about comfort eating, nighttime eating? Why are these topics that appeal to you, and what are, let's start by defining what they are, and then why this may be an important conversation for those listening tonight.
Of course. So kind of stress eating, nighttime eating, they usually all fall under the same category of emotional eating or comfort eating. So most of the time we are actually trying to distract ourselves by doing something that's soothing and distracting and giving us comfort, right? So food is great in regards to that. It's easily accessible. It changes our neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine when it comes to our happy hormone or hormone for motivation. It's a great way for us to distract ourselves, do something with our hands, take our mind off of things. So it makes total sense that it is something that it's easy to gravitate towards when we're dealing with any challenges in life, no matter what emotion it is. It could be even boredom. We want to escape that. So any eating that we do to try and deal with challenging emotions or life events, we call that comfort eating, right? And that is how I would define it, is when we're trying to manage emotions or life events with turning into food. And it's normal human behavior. We all do that. I still do that.
Absolutely.
Everyone does that. But if it's our main way of dealing with challenging life events and emotions, it becomes problematic, especially if you have fitness goals, fat loss goals. Again, it can, or values in life, it can interfere with showing up authentically. So it almost always becomes a problem if we don't have ways to navigate it in a more helpful way.
Mhm. And so is comfort eating the same thing as nighttime eating?
I would say most of the time the elements are the same. With nighttime eating, we might have some other elements apart from just trying to find some sort of emotional relief. We do want to look at also if you're actually doing things sustainably. So sometimes nighttime eating can, we can get to the point of emotional fatigue. A lot of times we feel like, oh, I'm just tired, so I'm
Mhm.
gonna eat. But wouldn't you want to go to bed if you were feeling
Rather
actually
than
physically
eat.
tired?
Right.
Yeah. So usually it's emotional fatigue. Another thing is maybe the approach that you're taking with your fitness and nutrition isn't the sustainable approach. So maybe throughout the day, your meal timing, calories, macronutrients, training approach aren't sustainable. So in the end of the day, you might be feeling deprived also physically. So there is the
Mhm.
emotional aspect as well as the physical aspect that can be with any behavior where you feel like you need to um, I guess, how would I say it? You need to address some sort of physical or emotional sensation with food. There can be the emotional aspect or the physical aspect if you're having an approach that is unsustainable. Um, Usually, when it comes to what I like to call the diet culture, it teaches us if you eat less and move more, you're going to see results. But it almost always becomes problematic because
Yeah.
our body is just trying to keep us safe, and it doesn't know the difference between world famine. You're just trying to lose some body fat. So that being said, we need to have a sustainable approach when it comes to your fitness routine, so you don't get the feelings of depletion that might lead to needing to eat because your body's trying to keep you safe, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes when we're overly focusing on food, yeah, it can be actually your body just trying to keep you safe from chronic dieting and aggressive approaches to fat loss. So, yeah, hope that was hope that was
No, that
overall
was
an
perfect.
answer to your question. Awesome.
And so, Emma, how do you, and maybe you can share a way you do it, but I know we talk a lot with our athletes about urge surfing. And,
Mm-hmm.
I'm working late tonight and I'm home. And sometimes I just walk by the kitchen. I'm not hungry. I'm probably tired or bored or frustrated, all the things that you talked about. How do I stop the urge to open the refrigerator and grab something out or open the pantry? And what has been your experience with that? And how do you coach your athletes around urge surfing?
Awesome. I'm very happy that we're talking about this topic because it was very impactful in my journey as well when it comes to healing my relationship with food. So, firstly, of course, you need to address to make sure that you're doing things sustainably because we can't just urge surf our basic survival mechanisms. So, making sure that you're doing things sustainably. So, you're not doing chronic dieting or aggressive methods. If you're doing everything the right way and what your coach is advising you to, we will have moments when it's not physical need for hunger, but it might be some sort of emotional crutch. So
Mhm.
urge surfing is a really impactful tool that you can utilize, knowing what urge looks like. So urge, if you've never been able to successfully overcome an urge, you might feel like it's just always going to exponentially grow, right? That it will just never go away. But actually, urge, there's this kind of start, peak, and then it will eventually fade away.
Mhm.
So, knowing the fact that with time, every single urge will um, have its peak and then slowly dissipate, um, we can utilize that tool to help overcome those moments. knowing that it won't last for forever. It's going to be uncomfortable for a moment,
Exactly. Yeah.
but it will pass. And something cool with that we need to know about habits is that every single time you behave a specific way, our brain tries to automate it. Our brain is the biggest automation machine. It's trying to automate everything to preserve energy, right? So the more you go through the same pattern, let's say night eating, you're going past the fridge and you grab something mindlessly, the more your brain automates it and the easier it is. It's the same way the other way around. So the more you urge serve and resist that urge, the easier it gets. Because then your brain is, and that neural pathway is strengthened. So knowing that it's okay to feel uncomfortable feelings, we don't always have to push them away. We can actually sit with it. You can almost feel like it's this wave hitting you. So where the name urge surfing comes from is like you're surfing the wave of discomfort,
Riding the wave.
right?
Yeah.
Riding the wave, and it's okay
to
feel uncomfortable feelings. So being able to sit with it can be helpful, but at the same time, if sometimes it can be overwhelming, try to do some sort of distracting activity. Try to distract yourself, go for a walk, or maybe it can be something soothing. Maybe there's actually some underlying emotion that you need to deal with, and maybe you need to soothe yourself or actually address the underlying emotion. So I love the urge surfing method as help. It could be very helpful, especially with nighttime eating, because usually it's about boredom, or maybe you're feeling lonely, or it's the end of the day, you're feeling fatigue, emotional fatigue specifically, and the more you follow through with a habit, the easier it gets. And it's not overnight that you're going to make that change, but every single time you resist the urge, you're paving the way moving forward and helping your journey later on. So every decision is a decision that makes a difference.
So that you're riding the wave longer and longer each time before you maybe succumb to giving in.
Yeah, exactly. And knowing that the wave doesn't last for forever, I think that's very impactful. Sometimes we don't understand that. If we always give in at the peak of the urge, but it will pass.
So, in one thing you mentioned that I think a lot of people listening, and myself included, struggle with is stress eating. So, what are your thoughts on stress as relates to stress and comfort, stress and nighttime eating, and how do we manage stress better so that it doesn't drive our emotions to want us to self-soothe or and all this is tied together, the urge, the stress management. But in this world that we're living in, how do you manage stress or how do you coach people to navigate stress and avoid eating their stress responses?
Of course. Yeah. So, as I already mentioned, it's really important to remember that when we use food as a way to distract ourselves, it's because we're trying to make ourselves feel better. So if we're in a stressful life situation, it can be a way for us to try and feel better. But knowing that every emotion is there for a reason, every emotion is valid, and there is a reason why you're feeling the way you're feeling, because it's something that's something important that is showing, your body is showing to you about your environment or your own internal world, right? So every emotion you're feeling is there for a reason. Fear is an easy one. You're feeling fear because your body is telling you to approach something with caution. If it's a poisonous snake, yes, the fear is justified. But if you are fearful of a meeting tomorrow that you don't know the outcome of, being able to check the facts and knowing, okay, this is not me being in physical danger or some predator lurking around the corner, but it's actually, your body just showing you that it's how to say it, your body is just so kind of telling you what's happening in your environment and your internal world, and it's important to know the difference. I like to utilize emotion regulation tools when it comes to dealing with challenging emotions.
What is
And what
emotional
is
regulation?
awesome? Yeah, that's a great question. So I like to think of it in 4 steps, where you are firstly noticing the emotion.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes we just feel, or we don't know what it is, and we straight go into some sort of distracting, soothing activity, which could be comfort eating. But
Mhm.
actually being able to notice what you're feeling can make a massive difference. Instead of you're just like, I'm feeling off, I don't even know what I'm feeling, actually noticing what you're feeling, being able to label that as well. This can be really challenging if you're not in touch with your emotions. Um, a tool that I like to use is called Emotions Wheel. You can Google it.
Uh-huh.
It basically shows 7 main emotion categories, and then they're in the middle, and then you go outside um, to the next circle to define the feeling even more, and then there's one more circle where you define it, even if it's like a very extreme level of that emotion or a milder level. And that way you can actually start to be more in touch with your emotions instead of, oh, I'm feeling off, let me turn into food. You
Mhm.
actually give yourself a chance to observe the emotion, right?
Mhm.
Becoming the observer. And sometimes that can be enough for you to understand why you're feeling the way you're feeling. Um, Experiencing the emotion is just as important because, as I mentioned, it's okay to not always feel okay. So, trying to make ourselves feel better immediately, we won't have ways to manage challenging emotions because sometimes we just have to actually feel it. And every emotion is valid. There's positive and negative feelings, but they're all just as valid, showing something important that's going, um, in our internal world or in our environment. Validating our feelings is very, very important part of it. That can be part of the expression as well. Validate. It's okay. I feel this way because, right?
Mhm.
So knowing that every emotion is there for a reason and every emotion is valid. Maybe the severity of it might be um, might not correlate with the facts, but it's still valid. It's showing you something important. And the last part of the emotion regulation is expressing it, right? So sometimes we bottle things in
Yep.
and it can lash out some way. Maybe we lash out to our loved one, or maybe we have an overeating episode. And that's usually because we don't express our emotions in a safe manner. So,
Mhm.
trying to think of what's the action urge for the emotion. So, if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling any type of negative emotion, just think of how can I express this without hurting myself or others. So if you're feeling angry, punch a pillow.
Go for a walk.
Yeah, exactly. Move your body. That's a great way to release emotions.
Push-ups,
Talk to a
burpees.
loved one. Yes, exactly. Oh, slam balls are my favorite thing. Battle ropes or slam balls when I'm dealing with some sort of um, elevated emotion. Those are great. So um, yeah, just trying to think of how can I express this emotion safely so it doesn't bottle up inside or manifest in different ways. Because when you have that whole protocol of emotion regulation, you can actually navigate emotions, know how to notice them, how to label them, and through that express them so they leave your body. So when it comes to kind of our nervous system, we build trauma or emotions as nervous system activation, and you just have to find a way to release that tension in your nervous system. We see this in the animal world, for example.
Mhm.
If there is a predator chasing a prey, the first thing the prey does is do this kind of shaking movement to get rid of that traumatic feeling. So we have to do the same thing. What would be that urge? Would it be movement? Would it be talking, using your vocal cords, um, doing some sort of action urge? Was it going in the middle of the forest and screaming because you feel like you need to scream? Um, you know, those would be some things um, to think about when it comes to how to navigate challenging emotions. I
Awesome.
know it's a kind of
Nope,
full
nope.
circle and a lot to share, but I think it was important to go
And not all of us are good at emotional regulation,
through. Hmm.
which is why it's sometimes easy to eat our feelings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and that's the important thing to note. We it's okay that you might not have the tools yet.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
only thing is awareness, knowing that you want to change, and that's the first step, because then you can bring attention to it and actively make a change. So you're here for a reason, and I really hope that this can be that first trigger to start to address and do more research on the topic if you're navigating stress eating, nighttime eating, comfort.
And talking about nighttime eating, one of my favorite topics, as you know, is sleep. What what are your thoughts on how sleep quality, not always sleep quantity, but the quality of the sleep we get
Mm-hmm.
on both our emotional regulation and our nighttime eating behavior?
100%. This is such an important topic to address because sleep is foundation for everything, right?
Mhm,
Um, I would always start with focusing on your sleep routine because when we don't get enough sleep, there are so many things um, that it can affect. Starting with, for example, our hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin. They are straight affected when it comes to our sleep quality. Um, Sometimes when we're tired, um, we feel a little bit more moody. Um, not have as we might not have as much
mhm.
um, willpower, mental strength. You feel irritated, you feel tired, so you're having much more of those negative emotions. So you might want to turn into food and um, not having as much of that. You might be feeling more fatigue, emotional fatigue throughout
Yep.
the day, and physical fatigue. And turning into food is much easier when we're not well rested because of the hormonal changes and shifts,
Mhm.
and your body being deprived. Yeah, combination of the elements of how our hormones change, and through that our emotional experience or the physical sensations in our bodies, it can make it that much harder to follow through with our plan. So sleep is foundation for sure. So the first thing to check in is, of course, am I getting adequate amount of sleep? Because
Yes.
I know the feeling when you're tired, you're cranky,
Yep.
you don't have the same mental strength to address your
Make right
emotions and what
decisions.
you're
Yeah.
feeling. Yeah, exactly.
Emma, I mean, I'm pretty convinced that I need to make this live stream an hour, not 30 minutes, because
We
we are
just scratched the surface.
we're just getting warmed up. But, knowing that we're coming to the top of the hour, what
Hmm.
is one message you would like to leave our listeners or viewers who may be struggling with emotional eating or comfort eating?
Yeah, of course. I personally appreciate you for being here because, again, it shows that you're interested and you want to make a change. It's really important to note that change didn't happen overnight. For me, of course, I learned the hard way, but it took me over 2 years to heal my hormones, get in touch with my hunger and satiety cues,
Yeah.
build the relationship that I have with myself and food and body, and kind of regain my body's trust because I was kind of fighting against my body's internal cues for such a long time. And knowing that it's normal part of human experience to have these types of behavior, um, but being able to have self compassion, knowing that you are where you are now for a reason, um, and just doing your best daily, um, showing up daily with an intention to make a change,
Mhm.
not expecting for perfection and for this journey either, because
Mhm.
it takes a while. Sometimes we have a good run and then we have a setback, but it's kind of knowing that every decision is a decision. So, we might move the needle forward 5 5 occasions, and then one setback. But that doesn't mean that all of your hard work goes to waste. It's just that there was one setback that again gives
Exactly.
you information on how to move forward. So sometimes setbacks, hardship, that actually teaches us the most important lessons.
Agree.
Knowing how to see the gray area, so avoiding that all or nothing mindset where we're like going from one extreme to another, but actually thinking if things don't go as planned, what's the next best option, right? Um, Instead of thinking of all or nothing, on plan, off plan, knowing that there's going to be that gray area, things are not always going to be perfect, but how can you, in the moment, and when you have the next decision ahead of you, make a different decision
Mm-hmm.
because you feel within you that you are not aligning with your values of health and fitness. And last thing is having an inclusive diet. So knowing that it's part of that all or nothing mindset where we're going from one extreme to another. So if we're excluding, I can never eat sugar again, or I
Yeah.
can never eat this specific food item again, of course your body's gonna want it because you're just thinking about it. Your body doesn't know the difference between yes or no. It's just like you're actively thinking all the time that I'm not allowed to eat this type of food. So knowing how to have an inclusive diet and have a healthy relationship with food, all of these aspects constitute the relationship that you have with yourself, food, body, and through that make a long-term difference. But it doesn't happen immediately. So knowing to be patient, have patience, self-compassion through this journey, and knowing that you're just doing your best. Every experience teaches us life, even in the
Mhm.
journey that you are towards healthier relationship with food and yourself.
Emma, that is amazing. Yes. There is no perfection, and you're right. Every experience teaches us life. Emma, I want to have you back to continue this conversation because, again, I think we're really just scratching the surface. And I have about 10 other questions I'd love to ask you. But for now, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was really amazing to share my story and experiences, and I really hope this was helpful. And maybe that was this ignition that you needed to create a change and make a difference. So I appreciate for inviting me to the show.
And I appreciate you. And I appreciate all of you who joined us today. Thank you so much for joining us. We can't wait to connect with you again next week. Until then, stay strong, keep pushing forward, and remember, we care deeply about each and every one of you. Be well, superheroes, and we will see you again next week. Take care.